Next up, for his second time up here, is Michael Alowitz. Clyde resident, the first time he was up here, he talked about his entire hike along the Appalachian Trail that he did a few years back and got the nickname Shorts because of it, and he was wearing shorts at the same time. Tonight he's going to be talking about driving movie theaters, so welcome Michael to the stage.
Yeah. I love the drive-in movie theater. My earliest memory is going to see E.T. The family used to get in the Dodge Aspen station wagon, going to drive-in. My sisters and I would be in the back with the sleeping bags and homemade popcorn. And then invariably we'd fall asleep before the second feature, or maybe even before the first feature was over. There's many things I like about the drive-in. I like the nostalgia. I like the freedom. You can go walk around if you need to, talk. Even people wanting to use their cell phone, you can go ahead. I like the bargain. I like that most drive-ins are still using these intermission stills from the 50s and 60s. There's some really funny animation in those intermission movies. Where I grew up in upstate New York, I had 5 drive-ins within about 45 minutes of my house. And by high school, we were going a lot and having a great time. And one of my favorite memories is going to see the movie Twister, which features a scene that shows The Shining, one of the greatest movies of all time, at the drive-in before the tornado hits. But more importantly, our heroes in the movie are driving down a 2-lane country road, yelling debris and swerving left and right. And that 2-lane country road is what you'll find leading to and from most drive-in theaters. So we had a really fun time headed home reenacting Twister. The drive-in's been around for almost 80 years already. In the 30s, when they first came out, they really catered to families. This was a time when movie houses were a lot more formal, and when these theaters first opened, they were really appealing to families. There were even theaters that had bottle warmers for young babies so that mothers would feel comfortable coming out. This, though, is the image most of you probably associate with the drive-in. The 50s, teen love, teen sex. This image basically is still what we see associated with the drive-in when it's referenced in modern pop culture usually. My grandma still actually refers to the drive-in as the passion pit from those days in the 50s. And she wasn't a big fan of me going when I was in high school. The heyday of the drive-in was the 50s, American car culture, teen rebellion. It was a great time if you liked the drive-in. Then they kept declining, and by the 70s it's a pretty sad story in most areas. You had a lot of drive-ins closed due to lack of business. They were no longer the family venue that they had once been. A lot of them, including at least one in Des Moines, turned to being porno theaters and showing these really cheap B-grade movies. It was the real decline. By the 80s and 90s, things kind of flattened out. This is a photograph by a railroad photographer named O. Winston Link from 1956 in West Virginia, and it's my favorite image of a drive-in. When I see this though, all I really wish is that I had a car like that to go to the drive-in in, because my Prius does not allow that cover. Des Moines and the immediate burbs have been home to 5 drive-ins. This is the Westview Drive-In under construction in 1951. This is now the location of the Perkins Restaurant at 86th and Hickman in Urbandale. So you get the idea that the encroachment of civilization, urban development really took over a lot of that land. And the value as a drive-in became very minimal, whereas you could build a Perkins and some other establishments and get much more value for your land. In Des Moines, this is the only screen still standing. This is on Southeast 14th. It used to be the Pioneer Drive-In. It's now an RV dealer. Further south was the Southeast 14th Street Drive-In Theater at what's now a Menards. And further north on East 14th was the Capitol Drive-In south of 8035. There was the other drive-in in Des Moines was actually over at 63rd and Grand, what's now the Sands. And that screen came down probably about 8 years ago. In Iowa, there are 4 drive-ins. This is the Valley in Newton. There's also one in Macokota, the 61. It's eastern Iowa. And in southeast Iowa, there's one called the Grandview that actually only opened 5 years ago. And it's part of a trend in the last 10 years that there have been a lot of new theaters opening across the country. Nothing like the 50s, of course. And a lot of existing theaters have been adding screens and trying to bring in more business. Right now, their biggest threat is actually the switch to digital projection, because a lot of these theaters don't have the revenue to support the conversion. And next year, all the major studios are going to go to supplying all the movies digitally. And so even though the heyday was 60 years ago, the drive-in still appears in pop culture quite frequently. From the movie Cars, the Radiator Springs Drive-In, and you may remember last week was the 79th anniversary of the drive-in, so Google memorialized it with an interactive doodle and a little drive-in movie. And Hardee's brought together some wonderful things. 2012's Sports Illustrated swimsuit issue covered girl Kate Upton, the drive-in, and cheeseburgers. And this ad just started airing, I think, a few months ago. You can even go to the drive-in in Manhattan. For about $100, you can basically sit in this nice car in a garage and watch the movie projected on a wall in front of you. Here in Central Iowa, we're a lot luckier. We can go to the Valley Drive-In in Newton. It's very easy to get to. You take 8035 to the Baxter exit and take the 2-lane country road to come in Newton from the backside. And if you forget, just remember, drive-in equals sex. Take the exit with the porn store. Very